What's going on there, guys? Welcome back to another on-location episode of the Craftavore Tastes. As I mentioned in my last couple of reviews, I'm actually on vacation out in Amish country, just a couple miles outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So today, on this episode, we are going to be digging into a beer that I picked up in my recent travels up in Burlington, Vermont, and it is none other than the legendary, the one that kind of quote-unquote to most people started it all as it relates to kind of the Vermont kind of super uber hyped beer scene. This is none other than the Alchemist and Heady Topper. So Heady is a 8% double IPA. I'm interested, and I wanted to do this review for a couple different reasons. First and foremost, I went up to the brewery up in Stowe. I had a really great time. Super clean, very kind of cool looking in there. It's almost kind of like, you kind of walk through and they have a lot of signs around the brewery about the brewing process, etc., and all this other kind of stuff. And it almost feels like you're going to see like a brewery in like Epcot Center, if that makes any sense. But what's super cool that the Alchemist still does is they actually have free tasters there for you. So they had Heady, Focal, and I think Holy Cow, which is a beer that I recently reviewed a couple episodes back. And so the one thing I did want to mention, and the reason why I'm super excited to do this review, is I had the Heady there, and I'll be perfectly honest with you. It did not smell or have the aromatics, nor the taste that what I remember Heady of old. I have dove into recent reviews of Heady on both Untapped and Beer Advocate, and I really honestly can't seem to find any reviews out there that people mention that the recipe has changed or that the Heady that they're having now currently isn't the same as the Heady that they had a number of years ago. It's still being pretty much brewed out of the same location, which is their Waterbury location for the Alchemist. They actually drive it down to the Stowe area. They actually don't brew it in the Stowe brewery. So I don't know. I tasted it at the brewery. I didn't think it tasted the same. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe my palate has completely changed. And that, I don't know, maybe my perception of it is different. So what I was interested is I picked up a 4-pack and I was like, let me see if this tastes any different in a can form, right? If it's the cans are going to be tasting different, and if it reminds me of the Heady that I used to have, or is it going to be more of like what I got at the brewery there, those free tasters that I found to be a little underwhelming. So, all right, let's go ahead and let's find out. So I'm going to pop a top on her, get it into a glass. I'll obviously do the appearance, the aroma, taste it, and then, of course, we are going to rate it. All right, so as I mentioned, I've had Heady Topper many times in my life, but I've actually never done a review. So I'm super excited about this one. All right. Let's get this. All right, into a glass. All right, so beer pours that kind of, traditional medium gold kind of color. Amazingly, I'm actually not getting any floaties out of this guy just yet. So obviously the Alchemist is super kind of well known for a tremendous amount of proteins and enzymes that are kind of just floating around there. And you kind of, I've kind of taken him to task a little bit recently about that just because, I mean, there's so many breweries that obviously brew similar beers to theirs that don't do that, but, that's kind of their signature and kind of their thing. And, it does say on the can, right? Drink from the can. That's always been the old gag. So anyway, beer looks awesome. Pours about a finger's nice of kind of foamy, really beautiful kind of white head. I'm already beginning to smell something off of the nose, which is a really good sign because at the brewery, I honestly struggled to get a lot of aromatics about it. It was just a lot of graininess, to be perfectly honest with you. And I realize that kind of sounds probably like heresy, but that was my perception. Anyway, beer looks absolutely awesome. Let's go ahead and get ourselves an aroma. Yeah, so... So I'm getting a bit of that graininess that I got out of that Heady Topper from the brewery itself in that taster glass, but definitely a lot more aromatics. In fact, it does have that kind of traditional sticky, kind of dank, like weed thing going on that Heady always used to give for me in aromatics. It's a little less muted than what I remember. This is a pretty darn fresh can. Unfortunately, they don't have a canning date on it, so I truly don't know that. But I did pick it up from the brewery in Stowe just about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I'm assuming it's probably a 2 week, 3 week, maybe at most, I hope, a month old can, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, it does have a little bit. Again, I'm getting kind of grainiest, like almost like sweet kind of malts going on, and then a little bit of that kind of like dank kind of weed characteristic and quality that I'm used to from Heady, which is positive. It's not as explosive. I remember years ago literally opening up a top of Heady or a can of Heady, pouring it out, and just literally it engulfing a room. It's not doing that, but it still smells pretty damn good. I mean, come on. Yeah, it smells super good. Let's go ahead and give her a taste. Cheers. Yum. All right. So, getting that kind of traditional big huge kind of pop of bitterness that is hanging around and lingering there. And it's the interesting thing about Heady Topper, I think, that where the it is the beer almost to a degree that kind of started that huge massive kind of Vermont craze, right? But the beer in and of itself is super different as to the way that the that Vermont or New England style, right, IPA has become or has gone, right? This is significantly more bitter than a lot of those juice bombs that we're traditionally used to coming out of the region, which is interesting to see kind of how an OG kind of beer has kind of shifted in terms of, or has stayed put for what it is. Rather, the industry and just kind of the style has kind of moved on into something else, right? Something a little bit more along those lines of again, a Trillium, a Treehouse, right? Super kind of turbid, really huge, big kind of juice bombs, right? Heady's not that. It is incredibly, incredibly flavorful. This can is actually very, very good. So I'm happy to see that maybe just the taster that I had at the brewery was a little bit more of an anomaly, which is great to see. Going back in for another taste. Yeah, very familiar. Huge pops of bitterness up front, getting a little bit of sweetness coming out of the residualness of those particular malts, getting a little bit more kind of dank qualities to it. And the thing that's kind of cool about Heady is that there's a crispness to it. You know what I mean? It's absolutely delicious. It tastes fantastic. It does remind me of old school Heady, which is really, really good to see. So, yeah, really super digging it. Going in for one more taste. Yeah, I love it. Bitter kind of grapefruit, a little bit of kind of pine going on there. A little bit obviously like citrus fruits as well, even maybe just like a little bit of kind of like undertones of like a sweet kind of candied kind of mango or things of that nature. Tastes freaking awesome, man. So let's go ahead and give her a rating. It's a legend and it's a classic, right? I mean, again, not to beat a dead horse, but for most people, this is kind of the beer that kind of started it all right? And it was a trendsetter. And it's still a really, 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 really good beer. So I'm actually a little bit upset that I only got a 4 pack. I had that taster and I was kind of like, should I not? I ended up getting like some of that luscious and things of that nature, but I should have probably got more. That's a shame. But anyway, really, really awesome. Let's go ahead and give her a straight up. I mean, that's really, really, really on par with what I remember. And I got to be fair because I used to give this beer a 4.5 cap rating on Untapped. And you know what? It's going to stay a 4.5 cap beer. That is really, really, really awesome. I'm glad to see that clearly the taster that I had at the brewery was an anomaly. Heady Topper, still freaking awesome. Still a legend. If you head up to Stowe, buy a lot of it. Don't make the mistake of me just getting a 4 pack. Get more than that. All right. So that'll do it for this episode of the Craftavore Taste. I'll hope you join me again when I will be back in my regular location where I drink, I review, I rate, and I repeat. Cheers, guys.